Hi, and welcome to a special episode of Book Banter. I am your guest host, Kerry Chaput, and I'm here to interview everyone's favorite, Tanya E. Williams. Is the E significant? You like to have it in the full name, Tanya E. Williams?
No, I go by Tanya. The E is because there was somebody with my same name doing something nasty in the United States. So
Oh, no. Okay. We don't want to.
I specified when I published. So
Got it. Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me to interview you today. I'm so excited to be here.
thank you for doing this. My husband suggested I interview myself, and I was like, I don't think I'm funny enough to pull that off.
That would be hard. That would be a hard one. Now, how does it feel to be on the other side of the mic?
Much more nerve-wracking.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
We were chatting earlier about how I kind of prefer to be the interviewed, and Tanya likes to do the interviewing. It's different personality types, I guess, or something.
But, or yeah. Control factors.
Or that. That always seems to play into authors' minds, doesn't it?
Yeah. I like to know the ending.
Yeah. Oh, okay. There you go. So we are here to discuss your Hamilton series. Your second book in the series, Meet Me at the Clock, came out in October. How was release?
Well, it was good and challenging on both counts. The story itself is being fairly well received, which is always helpful and nice, because you never know as an author when you write something and put it out into the world that, it may fall on deaf ears, it may fall flat, it may not do well. However, we had some issues with the print edition being released, so that was a little bit stressful. It took a little bit of the excitement out of it, because I was spending so much time online trying to troubleshoot and get the paperbacks out, because a good portion of readers still like picking up a physical copy. Sure. Like, we like paper. So it was, that was a challenge, but overall I'm quite pleased with how the book is doing. So
that's great. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit. I just want to get right into the story. I want to talk about the sister relationship. I think it's interesting how we have Louise and Clara, they're very different personalities. But I find that your exploration of sister relationships was present in both books. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. It was, it's interesting. I knew I wanted to do a dual point of view. Mm-hmm. And I started actually Welcome to the Hamilton with just Clara's perspective. I wanted to really figure out her motivation and really get to know her as a character. But I also knew that I would be going forward by doing a dual point of view with the sisters. Oh. And it was kind of, it's like when you go through history, there's this perception that we all have as our own individual life experience shows us. And I wanted to be able to show more than just one side of it. Yeah. And so the sisters kind of play off each other that way, both in an intimate sibling relationship, but and also in the greater world of the experiences that two young women would have in 1920s. Yeah. So, and Louisa is a super fun character to write, because she's cheeky and she's, fly by the seat of her pants. And so you kind of get to explore that fun side, which I really like. So, yeah. And sibling relationships are complicated. Yes. And I think that anybody who has a sibling understands how those relationships change from childhood into adulthood. But at the same time, there's this weird thing that happens when you get back together with your family. Those roles that you play, if you don't work to make them evolve, they stay the same. Yeah. And that's always fascinating to me. And I mean, people and their motivations and why they do the things they do is literally why I write, because I'm so intrigued by why.
Well, and what I really love about that is that, so much of historical fiction is finding that balance between bringing the past to life, but not bringing down modern readers, because it's just hard. We're reading in a world that is so fast paced and everything, fast hook and short attention span and all that. And then the way that you really excel at that is connecting to these common themes that we still deal with. So, Clara in her position of kind of being the responsible, grounded one, and then Louise kind of being the dreamer and feeling like she's got this dream that she, wants, but she's afraid to go for it. Those are very relatable themes that still modern young women deal with.
Absolutely. And that is the basis for how I approach a book. So I'm glad that worked. It's coming across.
Absolutely. And even in the scene detail of, how they approach different things, kind of with the same goal, but from different perspectives. Yeah. That's really neat.
This one was a hard one for me because when I dug into some of the research and discovered like the race riots and racial tension in a city that I love, that was hard. It was so hard. And then once you see it, you can't ignore it. You just can't. And I honestly struggled with that question of who am I to write something of that statue? I am pretty much a privileged white female. And now I don't believe that there's anybody that walks the earth that doesn't have some kind of discrimination experience. I believe that across the board, it's just some are way more amplified than anything should be. But when I had to tackle it in a story, I thought, well, how do I write that? And I thought, well, wait, I can write from the perspective of a middle-class white female and how we venture into the world going, wait, what's the right thing to do? I don't know what the right thing to do. I think a lot of us have that question of, I don't want to upset or, say the wrong thing, but you also need to sometimes say something.
Yeah.
And that was the balance. And so having the two sisters be able to kind of view both sides and not necessarily have an answer, because I don't know that we do, but, Sharon from the 11th chapter posted a video, a reel once, and the gist of it was just ask if somebody needs assistance.
Yeah.
You don't presume they do. You don't take over. You don't, don't judge, but just ask. Is there anything that I can help you with? And that really opened the floodgates for me, because I was like, that's the approach. Ask if you need help instead of just stepping in. So that's kind of why I approached it through the lens of the sisters.
Yeah.
So I could get both perspectives.
Yeah.
And both limited perspectives, really.
Yeah. And part of dealing with history is dealing with the uncomfortable stories. And, I like that you didn't ignore that, because let's be honest, a lot of 1920s historical fiction does focus on the lighter, happiness of the time. And there was a lot of not happiness for a lot of people. So showing the awareness through, like you said, the white lens of these young girls, kind of, learning about these things and not really being aware that this was a thing in their city,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because the Roaring 20s did not roar for everyone.
No, exactly.
We have this glamorous vision of that everybody was a flapper, and, it just wasn't the case.
Right.
Just wasn't the case. And in Vancouver, like BC, we got rid of prohibition pretty early.
Oh, yeah.
I think we were like maybe a year, 18 months. And we're like, wait, no.
I guess that makes sense, because when I researched prohibition, because I have two stories set in the 1920s, I was like, they're getting a lot of alcohol from Canada.
Yeah.
Seems to be like where they're getting their stashes from.
Well, you could take it, like rum runners would take the alcohol in boats out into international waters.
Oh.
And so all the risk was on the people from the United States getting that alcohol and transporting it back to land, because that's when it became illegal. So in international waters, there wasn't really anything anybody could do. But you'll hear stories of like Ontario and, sleds going across the frozen lakes and
Well, they were
It's
committed. They would find a
oh,
way.
definitely. Definitely. In fact, the liquor board, the British Columbia Liquor Board that that was sort of began when prohibition ended with all these funny rules. They had weird rules. You can drink on this day, but you can't have music. If you have music, you can't have alcohol. Like it was all these funny rules. They still exist today. That is our liquor store, our
Oh,
provincial liquor store.
interesting. Well, okay, so tell me about research
Mm,
because I would imagine that having a story take place kind of in your backyard is a definite home court advantage.
yes.
But tell us something that you might have learned in research that you didn't know or something that surprised you.
There was a lot actually that surprised me. The 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 funniest thing was the actual hotel is fictional. It
Mhm.
it doesn't exist. It's in a location that on an old like hand drawn 1926 map had hotel, and I had no idea what hotel it was. And I searched the Vancouver Public Library, I searched the Vancouver Archives, I everywhere I could find out what this hotel was. And it wasn't until Welcome to the Hamilton was just about to release that a historian in Vancouver was actually able to tell me that it was the York Hotel.
And there's no record of it?
None. Couldn't find a thing.
How is that possible?
Because they kind of used it as a hotel for like overflow, like so staff. So we
Hmm,
had the rail line
okay.
running up from Seattle and all of that. And so the porters and everything like that needed to stay somewhere. And so it was this staff overflow type of hotel.
Okay.
So it was
Hmm,
never made a big deal of. So
hmm,
so if you're in Vancouver, it's where Nordstrom's is now.
okay.
And you look, if you stand sort of on the street looking with your back at Nordstrom's, you will look across and see what's currently the art gallery, but used to be the courthouse. And so that's what the girls would have actually seen. So I
Okay.
spent a lot of time on that corner.
So great. Like imagining research like right there in it. So much of what I research is in, 1600s
Yeah.
France. And I mean, it's hard to find information. To be
Oh,
able to stand in the city and the exact spot that you're writing, what a gift.
it's huge. It is huge because Vancouver has done a fairly decent job of keeping its historic buildings.
Mm,
Keeping
yes.
in mind, we're not that old. Like,
Mhm.
as history goes, the East Coast is where Canadian history really is. And so Vancouver, we're looking, mid to late 1800s. So we're
Okay.
not we're not really, and actually the first city was actually called Granville. And
Oh, really?
yeah, we have Granville Street.
That name before and just maybe
Yeah.
put it together that it was early Vancouver.
Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
So it's just, it, it's lines on a map is all it boils
Yeah.
down to. But
Yeah.
we were interestingly, we were early adopters on electricity. And
Hmm.
so we had the electric streetcar that ran all the way out to the valley. So what would now be about a 2 hour and a half, 2 hour commute by car, they had rail all the way out there back
Wow.
in the late 1800s. And it's like, why did we get rid of that? That could have been useful.
Yes.
So, and we had electric street lamps, and
Mm.
it was very innovative also because of the everything's on water. We're surrounded by water.
Mhm.
Vancouver was actually a port to the world. So people may think it's odd that we had access to, say, like Australian beef. Um,
Right.
but even way back then, we had access to all of the world's amenities.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. We
It's
didn't
like
do
the
it.
historical version of an international airport.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. The port was super busy, and the rail, and ships from India coming with tea, and just amazing history. It's pretty cool. It's
That's
hard
a
to include it all actually.
I was gonna say it's a historical fiction writer's dream, right?
And it's funny that I never thought about writing about Vancouver much. It was always sort of in the back of my mind. But when the pandemic hit, there was no travel for research. So, thankfully, Vancouver Archives and the Vancouver Public Library was fantastic online, helping
Yeah.
us find the things we needed to find.
There's a lot of information out there now, which is really amazing.
It's a little overwhelming.
Overwhelming. Do you get caught in the down spiral of like you'll find the most random fact, like, I have to find this out now, and then an hour passes and you go, I didn't need to put all that effort in. What was I doing?
I didn't need to know that women's dresses were sized by age.
Oh.
Like, young girls, like if it was a size 12, it was meant for a 12-year-old girl.
Huh.
I didn't need to know that at all, but I spent an hour and a half or so trying to figure out why the newspaper advert said sizes 8 to 12. Where did that come from? I'm like, okay, yeah.
Interesting.
I am the librarian to find the answer.
Oh, we love a librarian.
Oh my gosh. 7th floor Vancouver Public Librarian. You guys rock.
Gotta love it. I want to know about series. Okay, so before you even started, when you sat down to write Welcome to the Hamilton, did you know it was going to be a series? And if you did you know how many books? How much did you know?
I knew it was going to be a series. I knew that it would start in the 20s, and I have this mythical end date of 1957.
Mm-hmm.
And why I'm stuck on that, I'll tell you, it's a ridiculous reason. Elvis visited Vancouver and stayed at the Hotel Georgia in 1957.
I love
and I'm like fixated on that date as that's kind of a wrapping up. And then I sort of went, well, would 2 girls work in a hotel for 30 years? And I thought, you know what? They probably would, actually.
Yeah.
And then I got into the other thing that kind of bookended my dates was World War II and the internment camps.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really hard one because in BC, Japanese citizens were literally rounded up, and their possessions and their homes and their businesses were taken over. Yeah. And they were interned to different parts of BC, places that we drive through, like on vacation. These little towns, little mining towns and things like that. They're taken from this, very wet kind of climate to the middle of BC where it's cold and snowing. And, that's not what they signed up for when they came to Canada. And a lot of them were Canadian. They were Japanese Canadian citizens.
Yeah.
And so that was hard to research. And I knew I needed to I knew I needed to include that as well. So I kind of thought, well, I've got to go through the war, and then the Elvis thing, 1957, because originally the hotel I wanted to write about was the Hotel Georgia.
Side note, real quick for anyone listening. After I read Welcome to the Hamilton, I told Tanya, I was like, I had the most amazing hotel experience of my life in Vancouver at a hotel called Hotel Rosewood, Georgia, I think is
it is the Rosewood, Georgia now. Yep.
And I kept thinking about it as I was reading this book. And then she said afterwards, she's like, yes, that's kind of, the interior was inspired by that. And I still think about that hotel. I loved that whole experience there.
It's a beautiful hotel. Beautiful. And I wanted the series to be called The Georgia Girls.
Oh.
And I was really set on it, but the legal department never got back to me.
Oh, interesting. All right. So first of all, I love that you are considering the internment camps, because it is something that I've actually searched out trying to find books on it. It's just not written about very much. And it's such a sad part of our history and a very shameful part of our history.
Yes.
And like you said, as white authors, we have to be very careful with what perspective we're putting in.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad that you're including it though, or thinking about including it in the
Yeah.
future books.
It's the reason for Masao's character.
Mm.
So the little Japanese boy
Mhm.
that we meet him in the first book, and we will continue to see him through the
Mhm.
series because he's just too darn adorable in my head,
Yeah.
and he is of the age that it affects him.
Mhm. Okay.
So the series will continue. I'm I in my head I have like 14 to 16, which seems really long,
14
but
to 16 years or books?
books.
Wow, that is a commitment.
I know, but don't
Okay.
hold me to it because you never never
No,
know what'll happen.
I like lofty ambitions. It's good.
It's just we're in 1927 still, and
Yeah.
somehow I have to get to 1957. So, and you know, I can only
Um,
hold 3 ideas in my head at a time, so I really only have the next 2.
okay. I was wondering because with it being the late 20s, 27, is that right?
Yeah, things are about to get bad.
I was gonna say the Great Depression is looming.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about pulling that time period into the next one in the series?
No, the next one will actually we'll be celebrating 1928 New Year's Eve at the Hotel Hamilton.
Okay, so not a huge time jump.
Not a huge time jump. I think we will jump a little faster through the 30s,
Okay.
just because it is a pretty devastating time.
Mhm.
Um, but I think there might be 2 books set in the 30s
Okay.
right now. I can. We did
That
a.
leaves a lot for the 40s. Are we doing a lot of World War II type books
I
potentially?
I think we might. Yeah, yeah. I know
Okay,
that.
so I love that because the market is dominated, historical fiction
Yes.
market is dominated by World War II, like Western Europe books,
Yes.
right? And so I
Mhm.
love the idea of pulling in where everyone else was at the time,
That's a big draw.
during that. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the Smith family series that I wrote. It's sort of the perspective of during World War II, but it's on the home front as well.
Mhm.
And I think that that's, you know, life went on, but it went on differently.
Mhm.
And I think that there's value in that as well. And because Canada was still a British colony, right? So, or not
Mhm.
still, but we we're a subject. We're still a subject
Yeah.
of Britain. So it's really interesting. I had to sort through the whole when Prince Charles became King Charles. I had to sort through how that actually affects Canada, and
Mm.
I realized that King Charles is actually in charge of our military
Oh,
on paper.
sure. It makes sense when you say that. Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, 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 wait a minute. And so I thought that was really interesting. But our country is literally split 50-50 on whether we want the monarchy or not.
Mhm. I
So,
think it's pretty similar with, same with Scotland when they went through their whole
yeah.
thing. And yeah, so it's hard because it's such a huge part of your history and it's just made up of who you are. But it's the
Yeah,
same thing as any colonialized country. You
exactly.
want your own space and your own identity.
But it's kind of fun though too because we get to have, like I'm listening to the audiobook, proofing the audiobook for Meet Me at the Clock right now. And so a lot of the characters do have British accents.
Oh,
And
nice.
it's kind of cool because that's reality.
Yeah.
And that is part of it. So yeah, it's I can see how World War II will have a little bit different impact because Canada was one of the first to jump in
Okay.
as a support. We jumped in pretty quickly.
Mhm.
Um, so, and I need to dig into the rationale behind that. I suspect it has to do with the British ties, but I think it'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't
I
even know
that's
how it
from
ends. And
also the UK, so
right? Yeah,
I'm
it's
good
it's.
with it.
I actually have a spin-off series idea, so that takes place in the UK, but We'll see. That's awfully ambitious for my brain.
So speaking of ambitious, do you envision yourself really committing to this series only for the future, or do you kind of go back and forth between other projects?
I go back and forth between other projects.
Mhm.
So my goal would be to release one Hamilton novel a year
Nice. Okay.
and another novel in the same year. We
Yeah.
haven't done that yet, so we will see if it's possible. But that's the goal for 2024 is
Yeah.
to release a different novel in the summer and then release Hamilton in the fall.
Very fun.
So a little
A lot of work,
stressful,
but
but
I know. But it's the fun of
yeah,
writing. Yes, it's stressful to be on,
yeah.
all of these
Deadlines.
time constraints and deadlines, but it's the fun of,
Yeah,
writing these stories and crafting. And then, um, you know, you get comfortable with these characters. I have a series as well,
yeah.
and it was draining in one way because you're like, I've been with this person's head, this person's mind for like 4 or 5 years now. But then there's that bonus that you get to know them on such an intimate level.
Yes,
So,
you do.
on that topic, is there a sister that came a little easier for you to write?
You know, it's funny because I would have thought Clara's kind of type A, and I kind of maybe fit that mold a little bit more type A, but she's a real worrywart. And I try very hard not to be a worry warrior at all. Um, so instead, I just reframe that and go, I just like control of things. It's probably the same thing, actually, but but Louisa is. I find it easier and actually like a little bit of a vacation to
Mhm,
slip into her character because she's just going to say whatever she wants to say
mhm.
and then laugh it off and it's all good and is none the wiser of whether she's really upset the apple cart and she almost doesn't care. There's a bit of
Right.
her that just doesn't care if she
Mhm,
does. So she's kind of freeing. So I think if
mhm.
I had to pick one that I like to write the most, it'd probably be Louisa.
Yeah, fun.
But I
So
think that
characters do just kind of surprise you and,
oh gosh.
"Oh, I kinda get you," even though you're not like me in real life.
Yeah. Well, I think she has some of the attributes that like I think every character you write has a little bit of you in him.
Sure.
Like and sometimes it's not the nicest part of you and the part that you wouldn't like,
Yeah,
display publicly because it's your inside voice.
yeah,
Um, but I also think that it's when you write a character that's kind of got that carefree mode to them, it's like aspirational. You're like,
yeah,
yeah, I could if I could just, let things just go with the flow and see
yeah.
what happens, right? But at the same time, the more I think about her, I also think I can see the control aspect that she has as well. So that might just be human
Manifest
nature.
way.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to. I think they all like. I really, really enjoy Miss Thompson too.
Oh, yeah? Yep.
I like her very, this is the way it's done.
Yeah.
But she's got a little bit of cheek to her, and
Mhm.
she's a very progressive woman for the 20s.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of funny.
Do you enjoy the research side of historical fiction?
A little bit too much.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, what's your favorite place to go to for or kind of research to do?
In person. In person research where I
Uh,
can hear stories is my absolute favorite. Um, I love like, connecting with librarians is also because they is phenomenal. They have such a wealth of information at their fingertips.
mhm.
But I also like I took a walking historical tour of Vancouver with a historian, and it's the little nuggets, the tidbits that kind of make the character make sense for the era, but make them human that I really strive for. So I like little bits of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I think the in-person interviews, I think there hasn't been no, I haven't written a story yet where I haven't had in-person interviews.
That's great. How do you find them? Reach out to them? Just
Yeah.
good for you.
A random cold call. I just kind of, when I wrote All That Was, we took, thank goodness my husband's so supportive, because we took many trips to Seattle. And again, librarians and historians. I spoke to the historian of the church. I got a private tour of a like the castle kind of thing in Seattle, which is now run by the archdiocese. But back then it was an elite family's home, which I based the home story out of.
Oh, great.
And so all of those little tidbits, and it's always filtered through the lens of the person who's telling you. But that's what makes it so intriguing, because they bring their experience to it as well. I
Yeah.
love that.
And like you said, the detail, these personal details, that's why you read historical fiction. Like,
right?
You can't find those in the textbook.
Yep.
Generally, you find the big picture items, what was going on in the world, what were the politics like? Like, even the day-to-day lives of people are kind of hard to find, but then you find these little tiny details that are so specific. You're like, oh, see, that's good. And that's what brings these stories to life.
Absolutely. That's, I think, exactly it's that human connection that makes us all, like, the time changes, the technology changes, the events change.
Yeah.
But our basic core needs, our wants, our desires, they are the same throughout the years. And that's what I try and strike that chord with in every single story.
Yeah.
We all desire the same things. We want food and shelter and our basic needs met, but we can all relate to what if they aren't.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Honestly, that's why I love reading about the Great Depression, because I feel like, who are you when you strip away everything that you have?
Exactly.
And then it's the common humanity. Then it's just, we're stripped down to who we are. And so I just love historical fiction, Tanya. I
know. You can learn so much, but you can learn it at an arm's length.
Yeah.
So it is impactful. It can help shape your view of the world, but you don't have to feel it so deeply that you're traumatized by it.
Yeah. I'm traumatized by some, but
yeah, I will. Some things are like, they're hard.
I know some of the World War II stories, I'm like, oh, can't take it. But but it's important. That's the thing about history, is we can't cloud it over with happiness, and so credit to you, because your stories definitely touch on everything that was happening and some of the darker, issues, but you don't sit us as readers in it for a long time. Or like you said, traumatize us. You do it with care, which is really nice.
You have to sort of know it existed, but you don't have to marinate in it.
Right. Yeah.
Some of my earlier, like the Smith family, is very hard hitting. It's very gut wrenching. It's hard. It's just like, it is hard. It is dysfunctional family in the third book, and it is like straight up all the worst things in the world happened to this family, and that was hard, really hard. Especially because one of the characters was just nasty. She was nasty. It was very difficult to write her. But apparently, when I wrote her story in the second book, I was not a happy person to be around. So
you take it on.
It was like putting on a coat, right? You're like, but it's also important to understand from another perspective.
Yeah.
So
and it depends on the story too. I feel like depending on the characters and what goes on in their life, they're going to take on different things, and the feel of the story is going to change. So it'll be interesting to watch the series as it goes along. And, as they get older, the things that they're going to be dealing with do tend to be, I don't want to dismiss younger people's issues, but I think when you're in your 20s, you have a little bit of a rosier view about the world, which thank goodness, because once you
Yes.
get a little older, it's like
It's
kind of see
hard.
the dark side. It'll be interesting to see how you shift their ages and their perspective.
I think that's actually the biggest task ahead of me is allowing them to continue to grow. Um, it's funny. I've only written one standalone novel, and yet I always am saying I prefer standalones.
Isn't that funny?
And I think the reason is because the character has to grow through one story. To make a
Mhm.
character grow over a series when you don't know what's happening in book 7,
Right.
but you have to still stretch them to get there. That's a challenge. That
Yeah.
that boggles my mind a little. I'm not quite sure how that's gonna work. I have no idea.
It will, one page at a time, one word at a time.
It's funny, right? It's yeah, we'll see. I mean,
Do you know the ending of the series yet? Is it already in your head?
no, which
No.
is
Okay.
weird for me. Usually, I like a lighthouse to write
Mhm.
to, so no, I have no idea what the ending is at all.
Yeah. Well, it's probably, it's good for you wanting to kind of write this open-ended series. For now, you've got books and books and books ahead of you, so it's kind of nice that you have that open-ended, well, let's just see where it takes me kind of.
Yeah, kind of, and kind of scary. I will admit that it's like, but I don't think too far ahead. That's my trick to myself. Is
Yeah.
that I think, excuse me, I think the next one, and I'm just starting to think the next one after that. So,
Ooh, very nice. Um, do you have a favorite book of this last year that you've read?
yours.
No,
Yes, absolutely not lying. Sorry, I have to cough.
no.
Let me see if I can cover up my mic. Excuse me.
It's that time of year.
It's that time of year. It's getting dry. The lights are hot. um, honestly, I did my top 3 reads of 2023 for Shepherd, which is shepherd.com. Readers should definitely check that out.
Yeah.
I'll put a link to it afterwards when this goes live because it is this massive resource. It's like browsing your favorite bookstore online
Mhm.
because you're getting author recommendations, reader recommendations, and everything like that. So I
Without
did
some of the drama that goes along with other apps, other reading
ex-
apps.
exactly. It's like you telling me about your favorite read, and
Mhm.
it's trustworthy. It's word of mouth. It's
Yeah.
I really really like what they're doing. Ben does a fantastic job over there, so I really want to support that. And so I did my 2023 top threes, and the first one was This Tender Land by William Kent Kruger.
Love.
Oh, just like open up my chest and let me just like oh
I
I was
think
like
my review for that was I don't even have words for how much I love this book because it was just that emotional response that you couldn't
yes,
even really put into words. You're just like, that left me with a whole lot of something, a whole lot of
right,
feelings.
and just it's so beautiful too.
Yeah.
Like it's I think it's just he writes with such care
Mhm.
and he just such respect for
Yeah.
all the characters involved. It's fascinating actually.
Yeah. It
But my
really is a beautiful story.
and I read the first book of his I read was Ordinary Grace.
I haven't read that one yet.
Again, beautiful, beautiful, but
I
still
do
this
have his
kind of
new release though on my TBR pile right back there.
you I haven't got it yet because I'm like my TBR pile is towering.
Terrible. Just don't
Gosh,
think about such things.
I know. Oh, they can't come with me. Um, then my second book, favorite book of the year was yours, Chasing Eleanor. Is
Thank you.
absolute okay. So if you haven't read it yet, I'm going to say you have to go out and grab this book because it is set in the 1930s. It is. I love Eleanor Roosevelt anyway, but
Same.
oh, the quotes and the tug of war between her words and her meanings and written in this beautiful coming of age and just the whole idea of found family I think is very poignant and resonates today. There's a lot of people who don't live close to their families or who choose not to be
Right.
close to their families for various reasons. And in a world of where we are leaning into inclusion, which I think is a really good thing. We've got a long way to go,
Yeah.
but we are leaning into inclusion and diversity. And I love that found family ideology. So Chasing Eleanor is stunning,
Right.
absolutely stunning. And I
I'm
should ask,
obsessed with found family.
oh,
It's
which makes
so
sense,
good. I
right?
love
Like it's such a core part of society now. So you can write about found family in history.
it.
It's just
Yeah.
I love it. It should be like its genre all its own.
I
It's
know, it
that
should
strong,
be. Yeah,
right?
I agree.
Is Chasing Eleanor on audiobook?
It is. And
It
actually, I
is.
think that the, narrator did a beautiful job on it.
Okay, because I actually think so this is how much I liked it. This is a compliment. I don't reread books.
Me either, never.
There's like maybe two, 3 books in my entire life that I've reread,
Mhm.
and I would like to listen to Chasing Eleanor on
Yeah.
audio because I think that I would get a even more immersive experience
Oh,
if I
thank
could
you.
listen to it because I'm a slow reader, so I could listen to it in a shorter period of
Well,
time.
I have friends like Jen, she'll
My
just
gosh.
fly through books in a day and a half. I'm like, "Who are you? You have a
Yes,
family and 3 kids,
I
and you're,
know,
like, still doing this."
and a prolific writer.
Yes,
Like,
I
I'm like,
know.
where do you have time for that? I would like to know that too
I
because
know. It's a superpower I have not learned yet. I'm working
right?
on it. It's just
I
not quite.
took a speed reading course.
Oh, was it
Just
helpful?
mm, yeah, yeah, I guess a little bit, but you know what? I reverted to my old ways, which is read every single word.
That's what I do. I can't stop myself.
I think it's because we love words.
Yeah, and I don't
So
wanna miss anything, and, like,
exactly.
yeah, and so I'm slow, and I can't just whiz through a paragraph because then I gloss over and I miss stuff, and I wanna, like, sit in it, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, the funny thing is that I think that if I'm flipping pages or looking to where the chapter ends, that's an indicator for me that I've left the story.
Yeah. Yeah, fair.
So I think, yeah, slow and steady.
Yeah. Well,
But
thank you, that's very, very sweet. It's Chasing Eleanor is it was a very emotional story for me, and it's very close to my heart.
it's a fantastic read. I absolutely adored it, honestly. And I don't
So
think we did a book banner about it, which is really interesting.
oh, no, we didn't. That's
We
okay.
we really
Um,
should.
we're having a little mini one right now. Um, so last question. Are you currently drafting book 3?
Yes and no. It's a
I mean, we're
complicated.
always doing something up here, right?
So, book 3 was actually supposed to come out this fall.
Oh, okay.
Um, and there was lots of things out of my control that didn't allow that to happen. So, because it is a Christmassy, New Year's Eve time period, I couldn't release it in June. It didn't make sense to. So that's why it's pushed to next holiday season. Um, so technically, it's about 3/4 drafted. 3/4 meaning that I've had the feedback from my editor and I need to go back in and work on it. Um, but I can't remember much about it. Like the details at all is gone from my head. So I'd actually have to go into the document and actually work on it. But right now I'm focused on another novel that has been a passion project of mine for years. It's been in my head for years and I'm finally getting to write it. So
Oh,
that
fun.
is my priority until it releases in the summer.
Can you give us any details on that?
I can't.
Yeah. No time period or nothing?
Oh, I can give you the time period. It's dual time period.
Okay.
So it starts off in the 1920s. But the second time period, which is kind of like present day time period, is actually in 1960.
Okay.
So they're both historical time periods, but they're, one versus the other. Yeah.
I kind of love that because I don't really want to leave history. Tanya. I just want to live in history. So dual timeline, both back in time. I'm good with that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sign me up for that one.
Well, actually, you're on my list to beta read.
Oh, good. I was going to say, because, okay, she might not be telling all of us on here, but you can bet I will be getting the dirt.
You will.
Here, I'm like, you're going to have to tell me what you're working on. I need to know.
I've been keeping it very close to my heart. Yes. I know. But here's the good news is that I have booked editors. So it's booked in and I have deadlines. So now it's get it done. So the funnest bit, which I'll share with you, but I won't tell you details, is that it's actually going to be part of a series, but it's going to be a standalone series. So each novel is a standalone novel in the series, but there's a thread that ties the series together. But there'll be different characters, different locations, different storylines for each one, but it's like standalone novels within a series.
Okay, very cool. I can't wait to learn more about this. And sign me up for beta read.
I was like,
always yes for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You just need something to actually read. So
well, yeah.
That's on me.
And I will not ask you the dreaded question that every single author gets asked, which is, how do you come up with your stories? Because I don't think that we really even know where they come from sometimes, but
real life.
Yeah. It's true. Like
real
emotional
life.
Things that you're trying to like seek out and understand. And
yeah. Usually it is. That's actually usually if I'm trying to sort something out myself, like a difficult relationship or a challenge in society, I'm usually like, how do I come to terms with this? How do I settle this internally? And it's usually through character.
Oh yeah. That's the next level of it takes a book from good to great. It's just character work.
Right?
When you forget that you're reading, it's like the best high in life. When you forget that you're reading and you were in it with them and I've been up at 2:00 in the morning, which I don't stay up late at all. I'm like worthless at 8:30. But the rare times that I do stay up, it's because I am so engrossed in a story that I can't, like my hands are cramping. I can't put it down.
Yes.
That's good character work right there.
I agree. It is they become real, and then you close the book, but yet you take them with you. And you're still thinking about them weeks later. And you're like, wow, like that really stuck with me. And good characters do that.
That's the dream when you're writing. You're like, I want that. I want someone to walk away and still think about this character after they shut the book.
I agree.
That's what we go for, right?
Yep. Because readers, you read them too fast. It takes us a year to write.
On a book, and they're like, which is exactly what we want.
It absolutely is a huge compliment, but it's so true. It's like I always equate it to like Christmas dinner where it takes like 3 days to prepare, and then it's gobbled down in 20 minutes, and you're left going, oh, what?
It's a very accurate comparison, actually. Very accurate.
So it's like, but it's still it's appreciated because it means that it was enjoyed and it was reveled in and everything like that. But it still takes a long time to create.
Yeah.
The double-edged sword.
Process. Do you enjoy the process? Because some people feel like it's really hard to write like that first draft. Do you like it, or do you prefer the editing side of things?
I actually like both for different reasons. So my absolute favorite part of the entire process is the thinking part. It's the seeing the story in my head like a movie. That's my favorite part.
Yeah.
It's disappointing to me when that movie has to get put on a page. It's never as good as I think it is in my head when it hits the page. And that is what I'm striving for. It's like the It's a little bit like an addiction that I
Yeah.
am striving for that. Perfect. I think our screen might have frozen, so that'll be interesting to see on
Yeah, I
the.
think you're a little frozen, but we can hear you fine.
Okay, good.
I wonder, is that just like an internet thing?
It must be. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. I don't know how to fix it though.
Um, well, shall we wrap up then?
I think they might, but that might be our cue.
But it was so fun to learn more about your process because I mean Tanya and I are friends, so we talk a decent amount, but we don't always talk about some of the
Oh,
more detailed writerly things, right? So
exactly.
it's been fun.
My screen just went, oh, there we go.
Yay!
I was going to say my screen went completely white.
Oh, interesting.
I'm like, come on,
Well, you're
computer.
back now. So yeah, I love hearing about your process and why your books mean something to you, and a little bit more about the Hamilton series, where it's going. So we had lots of fun details from you today.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do this for me. It's much
Oh, my
better having you
pleasure.
interview me than me interview me.
My pleasure. I am not an interviewer, but for you, I will do it.
You did fantastic. Are you kidding? You can take over Book Banner whenever you like.
Just get us talking about books and writing. That's all over.
It's
Then
pretty much,
Then
yeah.
I just feel like you and I are sitting here having like a happy hour, and people are just sort of listening.
Exactly. Without the happy, well, without the
Yeah,
cocktail anyway.
there you
It's
go.
happy, just no cocktail.
Yeah, I know. So I'm just got my water.
Water. Yeah, water.
But thank you for having me today, and thank you for sharing
Thank
your work with us.
you. Thank you so much.
And everyone watching, don't forget to check in. Is it every week you do book banter?
I try and do one once a month, but I am trying to
Okay,
do them a
so check in once a
little bit.
month for book banter because they're always fun episodes.
Thank you so much, Carrie.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Bye.